Hello and welcome to Commons Current Events Roundtable. Today we have an amazing guest and I'm so happy to have him on the show. I was very fortunate to meet him at the International Visitors Center, and that person is Neal Ball, who is White House Deputy Press Secretary under President Richard Nixon. And welcome, Neal, to our show.
Nice to be
I'm
with you.
so glad to get you. I know you're a very, very busy man, and I was just fortunate enough to get you to come on Commons Current Event Roundtable. We have a lot to talk about today, and you know, as the press is always showing the negative side of everything, and especially all our presidents, you know, do have positive and negative sides. People remember people from Clinton's Monica Lewinsky, Nixon's Watergate, but President Nixon was more than just Watergate. And being a press secretary, I really want to find out a little bit about you and what a press secretary. I know you're a deputy press secretary, but I still want to know what a press secretary does and why they do it. But first I want to read something that George McGovern, who was the former opponent of President Nixon, commented in 1983. He said, President Nixon probably had a more practical approach to the two superpowers, China and Soviet Union, than any other president since World War II. And I think, with the exception of his inexcusable continuation of the war in Vietnam, Nixon really will get high marks in history. And as Deputy Press Secretary, what do you feel about that statement?
Well, I think the point on China is very good, because that was historic and important and done with some courage, because, as you know, the right wing of the party that brought Nixon into office was not thrilled about dealings with communist China. But in terms of bringing about a more stable world, a better prospect for peace, it was quite brilliant. So yes, there are the things that we remember that are very positive, as McGovern did there, and
this that was his opponent. You know, that was the opponent.
I'm well aware of it.
And
yes.
that's where Watergate started.
Precisely. Yeah, I came to Washington in 1971, and which was about the campaign, and then left in early '73. So it was at that period, during that period, that the China encounter took place. I wasn't there. I had to stay home and take care of the White House. But
oh, you stayed home and took care of the White House.
Yes, you know, a lot of cleaning and fixing up and painting.
Do you do blinds and floors?
Yeah, we do a lot of that sort of thing. And no, but there was work to be done back in Washington while he was in China. But a certainly significant step toward a rebalance of power.
Now, you were brought in by, originally you were brought in to be the Secretary of Public Relations by former Attorney General Elliot Richardson, and that contact led you to become Deputy Press Secretary under Ron Ziegler. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, and what were your duties as a Deputy Press Secretary, and tell a little bit about Ron Ziegler and, you know, your beginnings?
Well, you prepared. There were two Deputy Press Secretaries, Jerry Warren and I, and that was unusual. There normally wouldn't have been. But I think in the interest of covering everything, especially as we were building up to the re-election of Nixon, the staff was expanded. And while you can't do any campaigning from the White House, you can do a better job of doing your work by having more staff. So I was assigned to domestic affairs primarily, and especially interested in health, which had long been an interest, and preparing the press secretary for dealing with the press on those issues, and each day, in effect, trying to guess what the press corps would be asking, and trying to give answers in advance to the press secretary.
Yeah, I know that you, as You know, there was one thing, and I think we talked about this. This was kind of something that really bothered me, and I know we talked about it at lunch, and I guess you said you're more bothered at it than I am. And I remember recently we had, in fact, this is a cover from Scott McClellan's his book on what happened, and I didn't take the whole book, but I took the back of it because I just wanted to get your reaction to it. As press secretary, this is Scott McClellan talking, I spent countless hours defending the administration from the podium in the White House briefing room. Although the things I said were sincere, I have since come to realize that some of them were badly misguided, and these pages I try to come to grips with some of the truths that life inside the White House was obscured. And he was talking about that what happened was a fundamental mistake, and his decisions, that's why he stopped working, because he felt that there were a lot of mistakes going on in the White House. And it was something that he got on television, and it was sort of a kiss and tell. And I know when you're working for somebody, and I think that the Queen Elizabeth, I think, has her, I think it's her press secretary sign a clause that they're not going to write negative books about her or something. But why would somebody, I mean, this was a job that he got, and he should have been very proud of his job, and I'm sure he was, but then afterwards he got on every television show talking about how terrible everything was, and that's what really bothered me.
Yeah, I think you're more trouble. I think
I'm more troubled.
You're more troubled than I am about it.
Yes.
No, first of all, trying to find out what's going on in the White House on any given day is a job of a very good reporter. I mean, you start very early in the morning trying to find out what the heck's going on, because you have 50 or 60 major people having contacts with the world through Congress, through the State Department, through others, doing sometimes what they think they should best do and not necessarily following any instructions or even what's in the best interest of the country. So you try to find out what all these people are doing and what trouble they've got into that day. Secondly, you sometimes are purposely misguided by people who tell you that this is being done for a certain reason, and you have no time to check it out, and you're apt to go up there and talk to the press of the country, saying this has been done for such and such a reason, only to find out later that you hadn't got the right information. So I sympathize with his situation, and I haven't read the whole book, but in the section I did read, I think he hits on a very important point, and that is that the attitude of the White House, its structure and its priorities are very often those of the campaign, that the president remains a candidate going for the next election, as Nixon certainly was, and as I'm afraid Obama is, and that this is the tone and the priority and the events setter of the White House. I think it's a very important point. Presidents come into office, they appoint people generally who have helped them in their campaign. What they know how to do best is campaign, not necessarily governance, not necessarily with wisdom, and they go on campaigning. And when
so you mean once they're still already president, they're still campaigning?
They're still the candidate.
So how many years, is it 1 year that they're in the White House, and then about the second year they start the campaign?
I think the campaign, as soon as I heard the lineup of the Obama staff, I knew they were in the campaign. I knew we were going, it's all about 4 years from now. And I think it's unfortunate because it cuts short a lot of opportunity and a lot of responsibility, but they don't know what else to do. I mean, they're used to campaigning and to events and to spin, and they don't know what else to do.
I'm wondering, is that why President Nixon, was he seduced by power and privilege? Was that why Watergate happened?
I don't know why Watergate happened. I feel convinced he knew nothing about its happening, and the cover-up of it, which is what led to his resignation, really was the issue. Yes, in a way, that's why it happened. Somebody gung-ho doing what they thought would be pleasing to the president or whatever. You know, these are happy young warriors going out to do what they think they need to do to win a campaign. And but the cover-up was his responsibility, and it's as much a mystery to people who have tried to figure it out as to why he took that position, as it is a mystery to us about why President Obama has continued a war, let's say, in Iraq or Afghanistan. I mean, we don't know why it is. There are sometimes irrational decisions haven't got a very rational answer or analysis.
When you're talking about the war in Afghanistan, I came across something was called the Real Afghan Lesson from Vietnam.